All right, so today we are diving into a pretty big question.
Definitely a big one.
Can we really love just one person forever?
Yeah.
Is that even realistic these days?
I mean, it's a question that people have been asking for centuries, right?
Oh, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And to help us unpack all of this, we're going to be looking at a conversation between Jay Shetty,
Oh, of course.
the relationship expert and former monk,
Yeah.
and Lewis Howes,
Like the motivational speaker.
who's actually been in a long-term relationship himself.
Yeah, he has.
So I think that gives them both a really interesting perspective on all of this.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating is they both kind of admit to being influenced by that happily ever after
Oh,
narrative.
totally. Like from movies
Yeah.
and music.
Yeah, all those classic love stories we grew up with.
Exactly. But it makes you wonder how much of what we believe about love is actually true.
Right,
Yeah.
versus just this romanticized ideal that's been fed to us.
Yeah. I mean, we've all been bombarded with that finding the one fantasy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Howes actually brings up a really interesting point. Okay, what's that?
He says that his early understanding of love was basically shaped by American movies.
Interesting. So, like, even our nationality can play a role in how we view love.
Exactly. It's like those cultural narratives really get ingrained in us.
Wow. So, before we can even talk about long-term relationships, we almost need to deprogram ourselves from all those fairy tales.
It's so important to acknowledge those influences, because they can really shape our expectations.
For sure.
Mm.
So, let's get into some of the specifics of what Shetty and Howes had to say.
Okay.
One thing that really stood out to me was Shetty's idea that there are actually two different types of desire.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more.
He talks about the explosive kind.
Okay, I've definitely felt that one.
Yeah, that intense, almost addictive feeling you get in new relationships.
Yeah.
But then he contrasts that with a more conscious, healthy desire that's based on admiration and respect.
That makes sense.
What do you think about that?
Well, it's fascinating because Shetty actually uses his own life before becoming a monk as an example.
Yeah, he talks about how he used to be more excited by the chase than the actual relationships themselves.
Whoa, so he's saying we might be chasing this fleeting kind of desire that's not actually sustainable.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, that feeling of always wanting what you can't have.
Oh, for sure. But Shetty argues that real desire doesn't just disappear over time.
It evolves, right?
Yeah, it deepens and becomes something much more profound.
I love that idea.
Me too. It's almost like upgrading from a fleeting firework to a slow, steady burn that keeps you warm for years.
That's a great analogy. So it's about moving beyond that initial infatuation
Right.
to a deeper, more conscious kind of love that's built on mutual respect and shared values.
Exactly. So the question is, how do we actually cultivate that kind of love?
Yeah. How do we make those connections last?
Well, House is a big advocate for what he calls conscious relationships.
Oh, interesting.
And he actually claims that it's the key to long-term success.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What does that look like?
He actually started therapy with his partner before any major problems even came up.
Wow, so they were being proactive instead of reactive.
Exactly.
Okay.
Which I think makes a lot of sense.
For sure. They wanted to set themselves up for success.
Right. And during those therapy sessions, they defined their individual values,
Yo.
their shared vision for the future, even their desired lifestyle.
So they were getting really clear on their expectations.
Yeah, basically addressing all those things that can cause major conflicts down the line.
That's smart.
Yeah.
I mean, so many couples wait until they're already in crisis mode
Yeah,
to start having those tough conversations.
totally. But Howes also had this great quote.
Okay, what's that?
He said, relationships should be about high engagement, low attachment.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Can you break that down for me?
What does that actually mean in practice?
Well, I think it means being fully present and invested in the relationship,
Okay.
but not clinging to it out of fear or insecurity.
So you're giving each other space to breathe,
Exactly. You're allowing space for individuality and growth.
which is easier said than done right.
Oh, absolutely. It takes a lot of trust and maturity.
But if you can get it right,
Yeah.
it sounds like it can lead to a really incredible connection.
One that's built on freedom, flexibility, and mutual respect.
I'm starting to see how this all ties together.
Yeah.
It's not about finding the one.
Yeah.
It's about consciously building a relationship that supports both individual growth and that strong, lasting connection.
Exactly.
Oh,
And recognizing that relationships are always evolving,
oh yeah. What works today might not work 5 years from now.
which is why Shetty is such a big believer in regular check-ins with your partner.
Oh, I love that idea. It's like a state of the union for the relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he and his wife actually do this on an ongoing basis.
So they're constantly making sure they're still aligned.
And that they're still growing together.
Because change is inevitable.
It is.
People evolve. Circumstances change. And what you needed from a relationship 5 years ago might be totally different now.
That's so true. So it's about being adaptable and having those open and honest conversations that allow you to make adjustments along the way.
Okay, I'm ready to dive into something that I know always sparks a lot of debate.
Okay, bring it on.
Polyamory.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
Both Shetty and Howes have friends who've explored this.
Right, having multiple romantic relationships at the same time.
Exactly. And their observations are actually really interesting.
Yeah, what do they have to say?
Well, Shetty makes this really important point that no relationship style,
Yeah.
whether it's monogamy or polyamory, can magically fix internal issues.
So it's not about the structure of the relationship itself.
Yeah, it's about the people in it.
Right. And whether they're willing to address their own baggage.
Because you can't just change the rules and expect everything to be perfect.
Exactly. It's not a quick fix.
Shetty even suggests that some people turn to polyamory as a way to avoid facing their feels of codependency.
Interesting. So they're using a relationship style as a Band-Aid for a deeper wound.
It seems like that's a theme that keeps coming up. The importance of self-awareness.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Before we even start thinking about long-term relationships,
Right.
we need to understand our own needs and values and what we really want.
Because self-awareness is the foundation for any kind of healthy relationship.
Yeah, it's about knowing yourself so you can choose a partner and a relationship style that truly aligns with who you are.
I couldn't agree more. So it really all comes back to knowing yourself, right?
Totally. So let's say we're ready for that long haul.
Okay.
To explore that idea of being with one person.
Yeah.
What do Shetty and Howes have to say about making it work?
Well, they both emphasize finding someone who shares your values,
Oh, for sure.
like your core values and your vision for the future.
Okay, so more than just having hobbies in common.
Exactly. It goes deeper than that.
Right, like you can love the same bands
Yeah.
and want to travel to the same places, but
But if your fundamental values are different,
yeah,
it's going to be tough.
it's about being aligned on a deeper level.
Yes. And they actually talk about how couples who serve something bigger than themselves tend to do really well.
Oh, interesting. Like what kind of things?
Well, it could be their family,
Okay.
their community,
Uh-huh.
some kind of shared mission.
That makes sense. It gives you a sense of purpose together.
Exactly. And it's not just about staying together
Right, it's about thriving together.
and making a positive impact on the world.
I love that. Okay, now here's something I found interesting.
Okay, what's that?
Howes actually talks about how choosing to not prioritize sexual chemistry early on actually helped his relationship
Oh, that's interesting.
with Martha.
Yeah.
He realized that jumping into that physical connection too quickly
Yeah.
had clouded his judgment in the past.
It's like that initial spark can be blinding
Yeah,
sometimes.
it's like you get so caught up in the excitement
Yeah,
that you miss some red flags.
totally. So he and Martha focused on building a foundation first,
Exactly.
like their friendship, communication, shared values.
It's like they built the house before they turned on the fireplace.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Here.
And, Shetty actually supports this idea
Really?
from a totally different angle.
Okay, how so?
We talked about how celibacy during his time as a monk actually helped him develop incredible clarity.
Interesting.
And that clarity allowed him to make better decisions.
In all areas of his life.
Yeah, not just relationships.
So it's like creating that space to really see things clearly.
Without being clouded by desire.
And Shetty even says that those chemicals released during sex
Yeah.
can actually create a false sense of closeness.
Oh, wow.
Like our brains trick us into thinking we're more connected than we really are.
Because of a physiological response?
Exactly. So it's about being aware of that
Yeah.
and making choices that align with our long-term goals.
Not just our immediate desires.
Which brings us back to constantly checking in with ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and our partners.
Are we happy? Are we growing? Are our values still aligned?
And if not, are we willing to do something about it?
Right, because staying in a relationship shouldn't be about fulfilling some old promise.
Or meeting societal expectations
It should be a conscious choice you make every day.
based on your present experience.
Exactly. And Shetty says it so well.
What's that?
He says long-term relationships aren't about finding the one.
Okay.
They're about choosing to grow alongside someone you respect and admire.
Someone who challenges you to be better.
Exactly. And Howes admits that it's not always easy.
Oh, I'm sure.
He's had some really tough conversations with Martha.
Oh, yeah.
Times when they felt like they were drifting apart.
But it sounds like those conversations were actually crucial.
You were.
for building an even stronger connection
Because they were able to be honest about their needs,
without blaming or shaming each other
and they were able to listen with an open mind.
and be willing to compromise.
Exactly.
Um,
So those challenges actually became opportunities for growth.
I like that. So it's a constant back and forth, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like finding that balance between your own needs
Right.
and the needs of the relationship.
It is a damn.
Totally. And one thing both Shetty and Howes talk about is self-validation.
Oh, that's so important.
Like you can't rely on your partner to
Right.
constantly make you feel good.
To meet all your needs.
Exactly. You have to cultivate that inner sense of worthiness yourself.
Yeah.
So you can show up in the relationship as a whole person.
Like you can't pour from an empty cup.
I love that analogy. And
Yeah.
when both partners are coming from that place of wholeness,
Yeah.
it creates something really special.
Absolutely. Like a relationship that's greater than the sum of its parts.
Right. Okay, so after all this,
Yeah.
the big question,
Uh-huh.
can we really love one person forever?
Well, Shetty and Howes seem to think so,
Okay.
but they're also realistic about it.
So it's not about finding that perfect soulmate
No,
or expecting it to be easy.
definitely not.
It's about making a conscious choice every day
To prioritize the relationship,
to communicate openly.
to put in the work.
Yeah, and to grow both as individuals
Right.
and as a couple.
Because, let's be honest,
Yeah.
relationships have their ups and downs.
For sure. You're going to have times when you feel super connected and
Yeah.
times when you feel more distant.
And that's totally normal.
The key is to remember why you chose to be together in the first place.
Exactly.
Eh,
And to see those challenges
Yeah,
as opportunities to deepen your bond.
I like that. And let's not forget what Howe said about service.
Oh, right.
That ultimate relationship glue.
Finding a shared purpose.
Yeah, something bigger than yourselves.
That you can contribute to together.
It can bring so much meaning to your partnership.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So to wrap things up,
Okay.
Shetty and Howes really emphasize the importance of knowing your values.
When it comes to relationships.
Yeah. So here's a question for you.
All right.
If you had to choose one core value
Oh, okay.
that's non-negotiable in your love life,
Like a must-have.
exactly, what would it be?
Would it be loyalty?
Growth adventure.
Peace.
Really take some time to think about that.
Yeah, what are the things that are truly important to you?
And maybe even discuss it with a friend or your partner.
I love that. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation.
And until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep growing.